Alright, so this is my third attempt, I think, at this. So let's go ahead and get this movie started. We're doing the Anunnaki Movie 1 reaction and drinking game. And essentially, not essentially, you take a sip, or however you want to do it, every time you hear Enki or evil wind. So that's what I'm about to start here. And I decided on those because when I turned it on to kind of like test it the last time, it basically seemed like it started out with saying evil wind quite a few times, talking about what I imagine was the nuclear fallout. Okay. Alright, sorry, I'm just kind of getting some stuff aligned here. Alright. Alright, so I think it's about time. I do have my cup of vodka here. So this is vodka soda I will be sipping on, and I will take a sip every time it says Enki or evil wind. So for hopefully third time's a charm here, let's get this movie going. Some will see it's true. Like, I remember already being severely disappointed when it said something about would make the world, like, would fall apart, the world. Yeah, it would fall apart. Almost all religions around the world.
The weapons of terror has been used. Sumer is devastated and all life that existed has turned to death. Enki, the great god, decided to call his chosen one, the master scribe, Indubsa. After the abduction of Indubsa, Enki began to speak.
It's 2 sips already.
I feel a heavy spirit upon me, bitter lamentations that fill my heart. The land is desolate. Sumer has been destroyed.
Alright.
Corpses are piling up.
What's your take on that?
The evil wind, the great calamity, vanished the people and all lands. In rivers nothing moves anymore. The pure, sparkling waters turn to poison. Death is the only smell here. There is no more life and only the wind makes a sound. The tall and grand temples were abandoned by their gods. There is no command. Scepter and crown has gone. On the banks of the 2 great rivers, once lush and full of life, now only weeds sprout.
At what point was this?
Humanity had never seen anything like this. It is sad to realize that where once there was a city, the home of gods and humans, now only ruins reveals itself. The destructive hand of terror has fallen on every city from west to east. It was an evil wind, a storm born on a distant plain, a great calamity stalking its path. a death wind, a devouring storm.
Okay, death wind's not evil.
It was
it's
like
close,
a
but it's
deluge,
not.
but with wind and poisoned air,
Pretty sure
not
it's going to
water.
say inky enough.
It was a decision, not fate, that decided this way.
The
The great gods, on their council, decided for the great calamity, and so they brought it. Enlil and Ninmah, my loved ones, allowed it. I pleaded that all destruction had to be stopped.
Said inky, does that count?
I argued day and night, but it was in vain. Ninurta, the warlike son of Enlil, and Nergal, my own son, unleashed the weapons of terror and unleashed the great poison across the plain.
Alright, so both of their sons, is it fighting each other?
Now they cry in anguish. No one could have predicted that the evil wind born from the west would find its way to the east. In the holy cities, one after another the gods fled their cities and emptied their temples.
Bombed each other, and then the nuclear
In
fallout
Eridu,
started.
at my city, I could do nothing to stop the cloud of poison that migrated towards me. Unsuccessful to stop the great destruction, my wife Ninki and I abandoned the city. As soon as the evil wind found its way to Nipper, Enlil and his wife hurriedly left, and in their ship, they survived. At the city of Ur, where the Sumerian royalty was,
I never say
Nannar
her,
begged
not
Enlil to prevent the wind of death from commanding fate. But Enlil said that not even he, who decides the fates, could prevent it. Enlil, Nannar, and his wife Ningal also leave the city.
Looks like a robot.
For you who follow my lament for Sumer know that the great flood was part of destiny. But the great calamity, the wind of death, did not.
Still not evil one. I got away with it.
The breaking of a promise brought the decision of a council of the gods, and the weapons of terror were authorized. It was a decision, not fate, it has to be clear. It was against Marduk, my dear firstborn son, that destruction had been decreed. Enlil's eldest son declared his opposition and threatened the use of weapons.
So yeah.
Thus, an army arose and Babylon was created as the center of the world.
Destroying it in the process.
In the
Sounds about
council
right.
of the Anunnaki, disputes were constant and growing. I have always opposed confrontation and advised peace. I argued vehemently that Marduk's time had come. The heavens announced the arrival of their era. But Ninjishsada, another of my sons, argued that the heavens foretold other signs. I knew his heart could not forgive Marduk's mistakes to him. Nannar, son of Enlil, at his turn, had also been ruthless. Thus, all the great gods, one by one, imposed their opinions. Argument was great, babble was widespread, and accusations and barbs found light in all the darkest corners of Anunnaki's life. Even Inanna was beside herself.
With a lion.
It demanded Marduk's punishment for the murder of his beloved Dumuzi. It was Ninurta who at last caused his voice to be heard. Marduk will only be stopped if it is with the use of weapons. Enlil's firstborn was
Trying
enraged,
to take over. With son v son.
and not just him.
Also was told in the 12th.
In
video
reality, what was being
Enki
discussed in
wanting
the
to
assembly of the great Anunnaki
usurp
was
the
that we
throne
could not
through
allow Marduk to arrive at the weapons
his
of terror
offspring.
before everyone else. Nergal, lord of the netherworlds, demanded the use of weapons. He said, "Let the ancient weapons of terror be used to destroy." I was
All
deeply
went awry.
saddened. I could not conceive what had happened before my own eyes. In place of agreement, there was silence. And Enlil, my brother, broke the sacred silence in the assembly of the gods to pronounce, a chastisement, he said, must befall. Marduk and Nabu are depriving us of our heritage, and we will deprive them of a place in the celestial ships. Burn the place to oblivion. Ninurta, enraged, said, "Let me be the one to come to blows. Let me burn it all." Nergal took the word to say, "Let the cities be destroyed. Let me raise your cities. Let me be the annihilator." Ninmah, my sister, who helped to create mankind, pronounced, "Humans cannot pay for our mistakes. They cannot be exterminated. This is a question of the gods. It is our question of the Anunnaki. It is not human, it is of the gods." Anu, from the house of heaven, heard them all and then uttered his holy decision. The weapons of terror must be used. May the place be razed to the ground, and may the people forgive you for it. Let Ninurta trigger the weapons of terror, and let Nergal be the annihilator.
So this literally was passed down.
And this was the decision Enlil announced, "I will reveal to them a secret of the gods. Everyone's hidden place, the hiding place of weapons of terror, I will unveil." Thus, as agreed, the weapons of terror would come out of their hiding places. And where would they go? In every corner they would touch, in dust, they would convert everything.
Makes you wonder. It says it's the ancient weapons that they had. What were their newer weapons?
This is how the oath was violated. The two sons, full of resolve, proud and swift of step, emerged from Enlil's chamber. Terror weapons have been revealed. The rest of the Anunnaki returned to their cities, not even imagining that the use of weapons of terror would also be a great calamity. Like a broken vessel on the ground, the oath was extinguished.
That's why they stopped.
And the weapons of terror were used. This was the story of the prior times and weapons of terror. I need to say that before these prior times, there was the beginning. And after the prior times were the olden times. On the olden times, the Anunnaki descended from the heavens to earth and created humanity. In prior times, however, there were still no gods on earth, and humans had not been created yet. On those prior times that I referred to is where we will find the beginning of all story. And this is the beginning that reveals all mysteries. What I'm going to tell you is about the planet Nibiru. The luck and fate that was reserved for the Anunnaki.
Nibiru? Anybody? I say Nibiru. I'm going with that.
Nibiru is a wide-orbiting planet. It's a big reddish planet. It makes an extended loop around the sun. For a time Nibiru is enveloped in cold, and part of the way the bright sun shines again. Nibiru is enveloped in a thick atmosphere. This atmosphere is constantly fueled by volcanic eruptions. In the cold period the atmosphere keeps the heat, like a coat that covers the entire planet. In the warm period the atmosphere protects Nibiru. In the middle periods, between peaks of heat and cold, the rains gain strength, offering consistency to lakes and rivers. Nibiru is covered in lush vegetation that feeds and protects the atmosphere. Thus arose all kinds of life, in the waters and on the land. Our species, the Anunnaki, also arose naturally, by essence, as an eternal seed to breed. Over time the Anunnaki multiplied and took place in the valleys, plains, and mountains. They set up homes, built peoples, and civilizations began. In fact, at this time, disputes and rivalries began and a first war took shape, the northern nation against the southern nation. Thus, sticks were transformed into heavy weapons and civilizations into armies. In time, missiles were launched and brother against brother a long and fierce battle began. Death and destruction swept across the lands north and south. Destruction overtook all of Nibiru. For a long time desolation took place on Nibiru. It wasn't one, not two. There were several orbits. And so, it was decided to declare a truce, and soon after, cries of peace arose everywhere. Nations shall unite, and only one throne shall there be on Nibiru. Let there be one king to rule them all, they declared. The chosen king should belong to the north or the south. A consort would also be chosen, but from the opposite region. Thus, north and south would be united in the figures of king and queen.
Those look like freaking
Husband
vampires.
and wife were one flesh, and the child born of their relationship would be the successor, with a dynasty that would soon be formed. The one chosen to rule was a mighty warrior and commander from the north. He was given the title of An, which means celestial. Thus, order was re-established in the lands, laws, and regulations. And unified the lands, repaired the canals, built the cities, and provided abundance and order. His mate, chosen from the south as agreed, was given the title of Antu. The wife of An. From their relationship 3 children were born, and the first of them was Enki. Enki remained alone on the throne, even though the concubines who came to the palace did not bear him children. Thus, the dynasty that had just begun was interrupted as soon as he died. The next was the middle son, who was not the firstborn, he was named as the rightful heir. He received the title of Anib, which means, the one in the middle, to justify his position among the brothers. Anib took as wife, Ninib, which means the Lady of Ib. Together they had a son named Anshargal, the successor to the throne and the fourth of the kings to rule Nibiru. His wife was his half-sister Kishargal. Of his reign, study had been the greatest legacy, and thus of the great tour of Nibiru he fixed a Shah, which is equal to 3,600 Earth years. A Shah he divided into 10 parts and declared 2 festivities, one when Nibiru is close to the sun, another in its farthest and coldest phase. His intention was to unify the people, and so, as he did, the northern feast and the southern feast served everyone. It was in the reign of Anshargal and Kishargal that the law of husband and wife, of sons and daughters was created, and the customs of the first tribes were established to be followed. The law was enacted that said that a woman should be chosen as an official wife, and this was the first wife. And in the law, the firstborn was his father's successor. Confusions, disputes and wars did not take long to create. If the firstborn son was not the first wife's, but the second son was his, who would be the legitimate heir? On Anshargal's reign, concubines were once again brought into the royal palace. And so, the concubines had sons and daughters. Some time later the legitimate wife, Kishargal, had a son. By law, the son of Anshargal and Kishargal was the rightful heir, though not the firstborn. Kishargal, his mother, Anshargal's true and lawful wife, shouted angrily, "If according to the norms my son of a firstborn wife is deprived of the succession, do not let the double seed be neglected. Although from different mothers, the king and I are descended from the same father, the king. I am the king's half-sister, and from me, the king is also half-brother. So my son has the double seed of our father, Anib. Let, in succession, the law of the seed, over the law of marriage prevail. Let, in succession, the son of a half-sister, whenever he is born, rise above others in succession." And Anshargal the king decided as Kishargal his wife and half-sister had said. Their son, though not the firstborn, was proclaimed the next king.
But it makes you wonder, like,
the law of seed had been adopted for succession, and thus the divergence between lawful wife and concubine had been decided.
Ancestral
The new king was given the title of Anshar, the fifth on Nibiru's throne. Anshar also took a half-sister named Kishar as his wife. And so, even if Anshar had children by the concubines, the rightful heir would be the son of the king and queen. During his reign, the fields reduced their harvests and fruits and cereals lost their abundance.
Not cereals.
From cycle to cycle, from Shah to Shah, the problems grew more and more. In time, sages and scholars had been called to investigate what was happening. Some said it had happened before, and on that time it was happening again. That was Nibiru's destiny, they said. Others concluded that a hole had appeared in the atmosphere and that volcanoes no longer erupted as before, which made the air more tenuous, and Nibiru's protective shield considerably reduced its level of efficiency. Under these conditions, the sixth king had assumed the throne. Inshar was his name, son of Anshar and Kishar, and meant noble master of the Shah. Inshar studied a lot and looked for an answer in other planets and atmospheres. He gave the planets different names honoring their ancestors. Inshar named the region near the sun the Hamad Bracelet, and announced that the region was protected from intruders by various asteroids. Inshar continued studying and looking for a salvation. But from Shah to Shah, the hole grew more and more. The scholars, on their councils, discussed what to do, but there seemed to be no solution. Someone had pronounced the idea to try artificially stimulate volcanoes to produce new eruptions. Nevertheless, on Inshar's reign the hole only grew. It felt like some kind of curse. The rains did not occur, the winds blew stronger, and the springs did not emerge. Thus Duru ascended the throne. He was the son of the king, but not the queen's son. Inshar married Ninshar, but she bore him no children. And then one of the concubines bore him a son, and so Duru, son of Inshar by a concubine, took charge of Nibiru. Duru had no double seed. Perhaps for this reason, he had not given importance. Duru chose as first wife, not a half-sister by the law of the seed. It was for love. Confusion has taken place. At the royal palace, children were not heirs, and wives were not half-sisters. As if this fact were not enough, sons and daughters of the king were not even born. The royal confusion had spread far and wide, like the hole in Nibiru's atmosphere that just grew more and more. Desperate Duru, the seventh seed of him, along with his wife Dauru, decided to adopt a boy. They named him Lama and pronounced him the rightful heir, who was subsequently made king. Lama was different from her father, Duru. He was the seventh seed of him. But Lama was not descended from rulers. And like the royal palace, troubles on Nibiru were ever more plentiful. Sages and scholars eventually came to a solution. Gold, gold, they shouted. If ground to a fine powder, pulverized in the air, it could become suspended, and thus the gap could close, offering the necessary protection. Gold, the sages said, was abundant in the Hamad Bracelet. And from this moment on, spaceships began to be built. Another group suggested the use of weapons of terror, launching missiles at volcanoes to stimulate their job. But Lama, the king of Nibiru, did not take an action. And then Nibiru counted one Shah. And then another Shah. Conflict stretched across the kingdom. Food and water were scarce. At the royal court, sages came and went, but the king did not listen to advisors and sages, only to his wife, Lahama.
race that
The third and fourth
advanced.
Shah passed, and the count
Still
already
had all those
reached
problems, haven't figured that out yet.
14,400 years if we counted Earth's time. Let us supplicate for the... Let's plead with him instead of acting. It's fate, advised the king's wife. But the people, the sages, and the advisors were desperate. Something needed to be done. Considering that the king does not, let us do it. We need a decision, a definition, said the crowd in protest. And it was a prince who first touched the weapons. From within the royal court a rebellion broke out. He announced that a new time had arrived and urged others to follow him. The prince's name was
distracted by the
Enlil.
freaking
Lama shall no longer be the king.
subtitles.
From now on I will be. Let's attack the king. Let's make him leave the throne. The princes followed and a chase began inside the palace.
Uh-oh.
Finally, at the tower, Enlil found Lama and faced him in a battle in which only one of the two would be alive. The warrior Enlil won and proclaimed himself the king, beyond any advisor or law.
Alright, so
Enlil is now the new king.
Didn't Anu take over?
Enlil was not wrong, and a new time had begun, and it wasn't a good time. The issue was clear. Lama was at least an adopted son of one of the generations of An. Nevertheless, what about Enlil? Who was Enlil? He was neither legitimate heir nor the firstborn, but he defended himself by arguing he had the royal seed. Enlil was called to explain it to the 7 Hu judges. And then there was the big reveal. Anshargal was his offspring, a royal seed directly from An, the celestial. I need to remind everyone about the royal seed. It was there, in the reign of Anshargal and his wife Kishargal, millennia and millennia ago, that the law of seed was defined. The first king to benefit from such rule was Anshar, son of Anshargal, the king, and Kishargal, his wife. Before his son named as rightful heir was born, Anshargal, one of my ancestors, a lamb was born. He was the son of Anshargal by a concubine. Then I, Enlil the prince, have the royal seed which the prince who now lies dead did not. Lama, I must remember, was adopted. The law of the seed is meaningless, said Enlil. It was a law created to usurp the throne from its true heir, the eldest son of Anshargal. And his name was a lamb. My forefather. I descend from his seed. The throne of Nibiru is mine. The 7 Hu judge considered Enlil's words and sent it to the Council of Counselors. The records were consulted, but a lamb's name was not there. But I am your descendant. I, Enlil, have the royal offspring.
Bring it back now, y'all.
You see that the law of succession was replaced by the law of the seed, created to deprive the true heir of royalty. And the counselors bade Enlil swear life and death, from his words. And so Enlil was named king of Nibiru. All other important positions were called to communicate the decision. And it was a prince who objected.
If you agree or disagree.
He claimed to be descended from An, and that the divine seed was stored on him.
I mean, I guess that's
Anu was his name.
irony of using the AI.
The seed of An is preserved on me.
Is their pronunciation
It did not
right?
dilute itself in any concubine. And the proof of every family tree he demonstrated. My name is Anu, from seed of An may Anu be the king then, many asserted. But others urged caution. Let's call for Enlil too. And Enlil opened his arms to receive Anu, the prince. We are from different descents, but we have the royal seed. Together we will bring abundance back to Nibiru. May I retain the throne and you the succession. May Anu be the crown prince, may he be my successor. Let your son marry my daughter to unify the succession. And so by common consent Enlil remained on the throne.
control.
He ordered to build more celestial ships to search for gold in the hammered bracelet. But it was reported that none of the ships has returned from there.
So they go to a space scene. Pretty sure some of this is like
Then hurl the weapons of
footage.
terror, that Nibiru's bowels may open, and the volcanoes stir, he commanded. Then it was done.
nuking
Mountains swayed,
volcanoes to
valleys shuddered,
trigger-
but the rain refused to fall and the winds gusted. In the royal palace, Anu was treated as a servant of Allelu, and not as a prince, as was his due. And in cities, the people of Nibiru no longer worshipped their king.
Bum, bum, bum.
Instead of relief, Allelu brought only misery. And yet, on the throne he remained. It was when, in the 9th Shah, Anu presented confrontation to Allelu. The challenge was a combat, completely unarmed. That's when Allelu bent his knees and fall to the ground. Allelu was defeated in combat. And by acclamation Anu was proclaimed the new king and escorted to the palace. Allelu, however, did not return. He feared his death, his fate, and the fate of his predecessor, whose executioner he had been.
It's just amazing that an advanced
He
species
escaped
is
through
still
the crowd
using
and looked for one of the celestial ships with projectiles. Upon entering the ship, he lit all the controls and left. Unbeknownst to anyone, Allelu escaped Nibiru in a celestial ship and made his way to a far and distant planet. On Nibiru, exile was certain and his death likely. And then, high above, in the safety of his celestial ship, Allelu watched the planet Nibiru. It was a gigantic sphere suspended in the void.
Maybe I should add an ability.
The fire of eruptions, even if more tenuous, flickered, offering an exuberant glow.
Doing this, but
The radiance of its mighty fullness was the beauty of the skies of other worlds.
too crazy.
Like an eagle, Allelu scanned the skies, admiring the beauty of the planet that gave him life. Then, controlling his celestial ship, Allelu turned to the vastness of space, with Nibiru at his back. On one side, the darkness of space lay, on the other, the giant of volcanic eruptions disappeared into the great dark sea. Thus the worlds and atmospheres that King Inshar had studied and named after the ancestors became visible. Little Gaga, known as Pluto, offered its welcome.
I forgot that they named it Gaga.
Then the celestial Antu, the bluish and sparkling Neptune, made itself felt, offering a good omen with its exuberant hue due to its pure waters. Enchanted by the beauty, but following his course, Allelu found Uranus, the planet dedicated to An, with a blue-green glow. But his fate took the course of the first prince of heaven, Anshar. The rings were beautiful and resplendent and seemed to bewitch the celestial ship.
But that is
Allelu appreciated the rings of the beautiful planet that would later be named Saturn by humans. But suddenly a bad omen had weighed on his heart. A gigantic shadow prevented him from enjoying the sun, plunging his entire ship into an icy twilight. It was the gigantic planet Kishar. Swirling storms mixed different shades to the spots that occupied the planet. It was as if Kishar provoked intense lightning. Such activity caused Allelu to get lost in the immensity and for a lapse of time to be confused in the direction to be taken. Upon regaining consciousness of his mission, Allelu gazed at the sun in the distance. gaining space in front of Kishar, who was little by little further away. But his whole body shuddered, and the fear of death found the warrior Allelu. It was the hammered bracelet. A cluster of rocks and stones grouped together like fatherless orphans. Inshar had said that the region was protected by this huge asteroid belt. All the Anunnaki who had tried to cross the region previously had lost their lives. The rocks swallowed up the sounding ships that came from Nibiru like wild and hungry lions.
There is no up and down in space.
Allelu could sense other Anunnaki as he could witness every explosion on every ship of every Anunnaki that passed away.
Oh, it said Anunnaki.
Fearing for his life, the valiant warrior Allelu took courage. He wasn't going to give up that easily. He knew that if the secret was true, if his ancestors hadn't lied to him or been wrong, then the gold would be found and the glory of a heavenly reign was imminent. Thus Allelu fought face to face with the rocks. He fed the ship's firestones and unleashed a deadly missile against the rocks, which slammed each other with the momentum. And then, the weapons of terror were hurled into space. Open up to your king. I am Allelu, a warrior from Nibiru, equipped with a ship, weapons, and missiles. Nothing will stand in my way. My destiny is glory. A heavenly reign has been prepared for me. As by spell, the hammered bracelet opened like a gate, and Allelu could see a path of immense darkness through the rocks. And passing through the hall opened in the hammered bracelet, Allelu could feel the glory of his fate. All other Anunnaki had died in the attempt, but not him. Of his feet, Allelu swiftly crossed the sixth planet in the account of the celestial gods. It was a reddish-brown planet, Mars. His path led towards the sun, when suddenly he saw the new world. The planet was divided into 3 regions. It was covered in white by snow at the top and bottom, blue and brown in between. It was the 7th planet, without a doubt. That was the legendary key. Allelu circled the planet and could observe land and oceans.
Hey, pumpkin!
And then turned on the equipment to check the depths. The penetrating ray was directed, and then, the surprise. The gold was there. The lightning showed gold, a lot of gold. I've got it, said Allelu. But excitement soon gave way to fear when he realized what could happen. How to land safely. If it were on dry land, it could explode, and then he dies. And if it were in the waters, possibly the warrior would sink towards oblivion. For any decision, it seemed to be too late. The gravitational pull was strong and his aircraft's wings glowed. The atmosphere was like an oven, finer than Nibiru's, and its net of attraction weaker. And then the celestial ship began to shudder. Impact seemed imminent and his heart clenched in agony. And then the bang, and small flashes were seen. The ship landed and Allelu was thrown into his unconscious, becoming completely immobile, inert, and passed out. There was no dimension by which time could be measured, and with absolutely no sense, the hero Allelu managed to move and realize that he had survived. This was the moment when the first Anunnaki arrived on Earth, or as the Anunnaki themselves called it, the Planet King. Regaining full consciousness, Allelu beheld that his ship had come down on dry land, on the edge of wide marshes. So the first Anunnaki to arrive on Earth wear a fish suit and an eagle's helmet and opened the door of his ship. He observed the soil he was on and took his first steps in the new world. He walked among the waters of the marshland and shivered with the cold. He realized that he was a lone traveler, possibly exiled forever from Nibiru. In the new world no one had received him, and so, there too, he was alone. He remembered his family, his reign, the battle with Anu, the dangers he had faced, and the hammered bracelet. Was he exiled from Nibiru forever? Forever?
Forever.
Anguish gripped his chest, and then he returned to the ship to feed and drink. That's when a deep sleep overcame him, a powerful lethargy that sent him to sleep, and once again unconsciousness found him. Allelu had fallen asleep while his thoughts were lost in all history and all he knew. Allelu had been properly trained and prepared. He had been among the great, the wise, the scholars, and the commanders. Anyone who thought that Allelu was just a supporting actor in this story was wrong. Allelu had learned much from his ancestor Anshargal, knowing the sky and the circuits.
Really?
Within Shah his knowledge was broadened in a grandiose way. And it was like a profound connoisseur that Allelu could converse with the sages, scholars, and commanders, greatly expanding his knowledge. It was there, on that environment, where he learned about the secret from the beginning. And this secret that Allelu kept that led him to the distant planet beyond the hammered bracelet is what we will know from now on. In the beginning, when the gods of the heavens had not been called into existence, and in the key below, the firm ground had not been named yet, existed the Apsu alone in the void, the primordial begetter. In the heights of above, the heavenly gods had not yet been created, in the waters below, the heavenly gods had not yet appeared. Above and below none of the gods was formed, and no destiny had been decreed. Apsu reigned alone, in the void. And then, with the Apsu winds, the primeval waters merged and a spell has been made. Upon the depths of the void a deep sleep fell, and Tiamat, the mother of all, was created to be his wife, a heavenly mother abundant in water. Beside him, Apsu brought Mummu and appointed him as his messenger to present Tiamat. And so, a resplendent gift Apsu bestowed upon his wife, a shining metal, the eternal gold, for her alone to possess.
Okay, so
and then the two mingled their waters to produce the rest of the divine children. They were all the planets through which Allelu had passed. At that time, Nibiru had not been created yet. And the earth had not yet been called into existence.
Why you should not have a
The heavenly waters were still united, and there was no hammered bracelet, and none of the circuits or orbits had been established. Tiamat, enraged by not resting, without the destinies traced or circuits established, formed an army against Apsu and took him as her firstborn. She named him Kingu, and raised him to the Ratavan. She put a tablet of destiny on his chest to acquire his own circuit, and instructed Kingu to fight against the gods. At that time, a god was begotten, a cunning creator forged him, he was the son of his own Sunday. From the depths where he was created, he has been separated, and with him he took the seed of life, a divine gift. And it wandered aimlessly through space, attracting everyone else. Its name was Nibiru, and it was to be known forever as the Crossing. Nibiru joined the troops, the brothers, and became the avenger to face Tiamat. He found his way before his brothers, and so the celestial battle began. Face to face, Nibiru and Tiamat clashed. The evil wind from Nibiru struck Tiamat's innards, and with several blows Tiamat became a butchered corpse. With no strength left, his host lost their balance, and their sons, Kingu among them, trembled in terror. The tablets of destinies were ripped out by the Lord, and new battles began. In the end of the battle, the hammered bracelet found its course, as did the other sons and daughters. Nibiru harbored the seed of life, and Ki, Earth, was formed.
My question to this has always been
Kingu was destined to light up Earth's night, eternally. Nibiru then was exalted.
that
The
stuff
true son of
happened,
the
and
sun,
first-hand
forged
account?
in the
Was this all
depths,
just like a
greatest of all, let him rule.
scientific
Nibiru shall keep the
research
crossing
saying,
of
okay,
heaven and
like, we've
earth,
crossed
and
through
crossing
this
has become his
solar
name.
system X amount of
None
times,
of the gods
and
will cross above or
have
below.
like scanned
Your destiny is, and forever will, take the measure
the
of a
rock down
Shah.
asteroids and
And this was the secret
Earth,
from the
and realize
beginning,
that
and the battle of the
they're made
gods
up of
which
the same
Alallu
stuff.
knew all. Finding gold on the hammered bracelet was confirmation. The gold on the hammered bracelet was the hint of gold on top of ancient Tiamat.
Okay.
The secret of the beginning that he had been taught began to show clear signs of its veracity. And it was thus that Alallu awoke, not knowing how long he had slept. The escape from Nibiru was just the beginning of a new story, a new time, and a new world. Taken of courage, Alallu arose, perceiving a luminosity out of his ship, such as he had never seen on Nibiru. It was the sun. Alallu stretched a mast and gauge over the ship and tested the planet's air. It was compatible. Then he opened the ship's door, and with the hatches open he breathed the air deeply.
Like, why only use
Key's
Earth as
air
a
was
place to
undoubtedly
get
compatible.
your
Then,
gold
without
to save
protective
the
suit,
hero and
Alallu
not
descended from his
also
ship.
just want to
The light
overtake
was
it?
too bright and the sun's rays were overwhelming. He had to go back and put a mask to protect his eyes, and he took the opportunity to equip himself with a gun with a collector. He stepped onto the dark ground and walked into the swamp. With the collector he tested the water, but it was not fit for consumption. The waters were murky, dark and greenish. And there was one more important detail that his eyes glimpsed. There were fish. A lot of fishes. Alallu went towards the hills. He passed among the vegetation and appreciated the bushes that gave way to trees full of fruit. Then he took one of its fruits and put it in his mouth. The taste was sweet. Walking on his feet, it was possible to feel the moisture, and walked then towards it.
Where you going, Pumpkin?
Found a pond of silent waters. Once again he inserted the collector into the waters, but this time it was different. It was possible to drink the water. Joy had taken over his entire body. The new world had breathable air, fruit that could be eaten, and water to drink. That's when a sound, a hissing, distracted him. Gun in hands, he looked for the source of the sound and, having found it, fired. The sound ended and the hissing ceased. Then he saw a body that was motionless, lying dead. The creature had fierce eyes in its small head, and out of its mouth stuck out a huge tongue. The body was slender as a rope, without hands or feet. It was a crawling creature. Alallu wondered what kind of creature it was. He had never seen anything like it on Nibiru. Was it a guardian, a master of water? Unanswered, Alallu left the creature behind and found his way back to the ship. Before, he collected water and fruits. During the journey the sun's rays sharply diminished, and thus Alallu was astonished.
Oh, hey.
It got dark, very dark.
Bad boy is
The suddenness with which it had gone dark was surprising. And over the marsh a light rose on the horizon. A huge red ball that as it rose turned white. Alallu was thrilled. From his ship he contemplated the infinite and the firmament of a new world. Now, and on the way, he could see all the planets. He witnessed and passed through the hammered bracelet and managed to reach Key from where he watched Kingu glow in the darkness of the night. Alallu decided to wait for a new day rise to investigate the presence of gold. If the secret from the beginning were true, then the waters wrought Tiamat's golden veins. And there, in the waters of Key, in the cut half, the gold would be found. At the sunrise Alallu left his ship with the necessary equipment and, seeking the waters, he inserted what was needed to find out. And watching the meter, the symbols and numbers being filled in, the truth came. It was true, the secret from the beginning had entrusted him with the greatest of deeds and reserved celestial royalty for him. He had found gold in Ki. There was gold on earth. Taken by an enthusiasm that did not belong to him, Allelu entered his ship in a hurry, and in possession of the Tablet of Destinies, he addressed his message to the depths of space, in the direction of Nibiru. Attention Nibiru. I repeat, attention planet Nibiru. It is your king who speaks to you. Your former king. I left in one of the celestial ships. I gambled my life on the luck of my deeds and very skillfully discovered how to break through the hammered bracelet. The rocks paved the way for the kingship of Nibiru and I reached the planet Ki. There are fruits, water and air compatible. I'm Allelu, the first Anunnaki to arrive on the planet of salvation. I have found gold. Yes, I have found gold in Ki. The fate of Nibiru is in my hands. Now bow to your new king.
Bow?
My royalty is from heaven. Now pay attention and listen to my conditions. And considering this fact, Allelu made it clear. The fate of Nibiru is in my hands, and you must heed my conditions, said Allelu. The notice that Allelu had survived reached the royal palace on Nibiru and was transmitted by radio communication. Anu was astonished.
Sounds about right.
The counselors and sages had also been surprised. Everyone thought that Allelu had died.
Gotcha.
The commanders were quickly asked to check all the ships and found that, in fact, one of them had disappeared.
How do you miss a ship?
Allelu surely would have taken it. With the confirmation, Anu reflected on how he should proceed, and he decided to order that greetings be conveyed to Allelu. Anu, the king of Nibiru, salutes you. There was no reason for you to leave, dear Allelu. Know that in my heart there is no enmity. If thou hast indeed come to gold, let the glory of Nibiru be exalted, and let salvation indeed take place. Anu's greetings quickly reached earth, where Allelu heeded. In bellicose tone Allelu readily answered, if I am to be the savior, then let Nibiru be worthy of my deeds. Let the princes be summoned in assembly and declare my ascendancy supreme. May commanders make me their leader, may they bow to my orders. May I be named king, may my name override Anu on the throne. And may the council stand by my words. As soon as the words of Allelu reached Nibiru, the consternation was great. How could Anu be deposed? The advisors were confused. Where would Allelu be? Was it true that he had found the gold of salvation?
It's like, alright, cool, but you're still one.
What if it was a ruse? One of the counselors, the oldest of them, made his voice heard in the assembly. He said, I was the master of Allelu. He had carefully studied. He knows the secret from the beginning. Allelu knows the celestial battle. Of the gigantic watery monster Tiamat and of the golden veins, he has deep knowledge. So, if Allelu truly break through the hammered bracelet, he found his destiny on the 7th planet, which we know as Ki. Then a prince took the word. Allelu cannot demand terms. The calamities were his works, and he lost his throne in combat. If it's true that he found the gold, it needs to be proven. And even if he found the gold, would it be enough? Right. There was silence. The ones who took the word in the assembly was Enlil, the Lord of Command. Enlil is the son of Anu with his legitimate wife the Queen Antu. The decision of the assembly has been transmitted to Allelu, and then the first Anunnaki to arrive on Earth pondered all the points as if he were playing a chess game. The movement of each piece should be meticulous. Allelu agreed and testified of all his journey and the dangers he passed through. From the sampler he took his crystal, from the collector, his crystal heart, and inserted the objects into the transmitter for verification. and having sent the proofs, he addressed new elements of his bargain with them. He said, "Now that you already have the proofs, declare me king and bow to my orders." Alilu's words were stern and sharp. The sages were horrified, but they found that indeed the location of Alilu originated far beyond the hammered bracelet. And to discuss the matter, the assembly met once more. Anu's eldest son had spoken. He was married to Damkina, daughter of Alilu. He was known as the one whose home was water. Ea was his name. He would later be known as Enki, the Lord of Earth. And to maintain a better understanding of the story, we will always call him by his best-known name, Enki. My birth father is Anu, and by marriage Alilu turns out to be my father too. The intention of my marriage was to unite the clans. Allow me to bring unity to this conflict. Let me be Anu's emissary. Let me take the gold from Alilu and deliver it for Nibiru. I will make Alilu the proclaimed king on earth. And if salvation really reaches Nibiru, let a new battle take place to determine Nibiru's throne. Enki's words were wise, and they filled the hall of assembly. The advisors complied and Anu pronounced the sentence.
One or two more in there.
So be it. And a new fight I will bestow on Alilu. Let the victorious be the Nibiru's king. The decision was conveyed to Alilu, who agreed, "I will receive Enki on earth, and may he obtain the gold of the waters. May he carry out the tests, and that in the future a new battle for the throne of Nibiru will take place." Enki addressed the commanders at the ship's location and began the preparation of the mission. Enki would not use the weapons of terror to break through the hammered bracelet as Alilu had done. He would use water. And then the first question arose.
And I have a snake that I have to go check. Un momento, I'll be back. Make your way back home, back into your aquarium. Pretty sure I didn't miss anybody in that, but if I did, sorry, man, or woman. Alright, back at it.
If water was the force and not fire, where would it replenish? It was necessary to store the water in the ship, so the studies and preparations went on for a complete Shah. It was decided to use the largest of the celestial ships. The destination of the return was calculated and a tablet of destiny was fixed. 50 heroes were selected for the mission. Anu approved the trip, and so the Anunnaki entered the ship, carrying eagle helmets and fish garments. Enki knelt in reverence to his father Anu to receive the royal blessing. Anu said, "Enki, my dear eldest son,
now it's starting.
It will be a long trip. Safely go and return, and may thy success overtake us on Nibiru." Ninil, his mother, and Damkina, his wife, also bid farewell to Enki, who was the last to join the celestial ship. Then Anzu, which name means he who knows the heavens, the commander and pilot, lifted the gigantic craft over Nibiru's skies, beginning the mission that would soon reach Earth. The ship respectfully passed all the planets that honored Nibiru's royalty, until it found the fearsome and challenging hammered bracelet. The mission was carefully calculated and prepared so with jets of water, and not with the weapons of terror as Alilu had done. It would remove the gigantic rocks of the asteroid belt. The whoops of joy as the hammered bracelet erupted were euphoric, but soon gave way to apprehension.
Blows my mind. Like,
Anzu sounded the alarm. To clear a path between the rocks, more water than planned had been used. There would be no water to feed the ship's flaming stones for the rest of the journey. At the head of the gigantic Anunnaki ship was Lamu, the red planet that would later be called Mars. Anzu, the skilled pilot, slowed the ship and rounded the edge of a lake, landing smoothly. Together Enki and Anzu donned their eagle helmets and descended to solid ground.
So they stopped by
A
Mars
water-sucking
first?
pipe was ordered to draw water from the lake into the ship, and it was done. With the ship resupplied, once again they departed with its final destination addressed to planet Earth.
Alright, that's interesting.
And as soon as they approached Earth, and the transmitting signal from Alalu was picked up, they could see the oceans and the dry land, contrasting with the tones of snow in the 2/3 of the planet. But as they got closer, they noticed the strong attraction of the planet, and the weight of the snow for landing in the swampy region. Anzu circled the entire planet once more, seeking the ship's deceleration and closer proximity to the ground. And, finally, the gigantic ship descended on the waters of the Earth. That's when a message reached the ship. Alalu said, "Welcome to the land." The gigantic spacecraft took the signal and Anzu floated the spaceship like a ship towards Alalu. "Quick," said Alalu, "make haste." Anzu ordered all Anunnaki on board to put their fish costumes. The ship's door opened and the heroes descended from the ship. Enki, however, was left without a fish suit. His heart was beating like a drum. He swam freely and could feel that the waters were deep and much deeper than he imagined. As soon as he reached the bank he saw Alalu, who embraced him and said, "Welcome, my son-in-law. Welcome to a new planet." And then as the heroes moved, Alalu greeted them and bid them welcome. Enki said to the rest of the Anunnaki, "Here on Earth I am the commander. We've come a long way for an important mission. The future of Nibiru is in our hands. It's a life or death mission. Let's get down to work.
Get to it."
Anzu, convey to the king, my father, the good news of our happy arrival on the planet." Soon the sky turned reddish, orange and darkened. Alalu explained, "A night on Earth is far than you can imagine. Let's take the opportunity to rest. Before you can imagine, the sun will herald a new day." And so, night came
Why
and a
wouldn't
new
you,
day
like, coming
dawned.
from a planet
And with the new day Enki offered
apparently is
specific
having-
tasks to some of the Anunnaki, in Ger, the lord of fresh waters, in Kimdu, in charge of the ditch and the dikes, in Bililu to the command of the swamps.
Sometimes they're little sips, people.
And
but
having
good
known
Lord,
the fruits which his
Vodka and
vizier
soda.
Isamad could distinguish, Enki charged Guru to see the growing food.
I feel like I was saying something before and totally forgot.
So the camps were erected, ditches and dikes built. Kula produced clay bricks, Mushdamu produced the foundations, Inersag studied the serpents and slithering snakes. And Ulmash checked the animals of the waters and the birds of the air, classifying and studying them. Then 6 days had passed. On the 7th day, Enki pronounced, "We came from afar and traveled a long way, built our camp and analyzed everything around us. Let's call our fenced-in building home away from home and name it Eridu." And keeping his promise, Enki appointed Alalu the commander of Eridu. And then, he added, "Let this 7th day be consecrated to our rest. And may it always be, the 7th day, our day of rest." As soon as the day of rest was over, the search for gold had to begin. Enki began to suck the marshy waters, for 6 consecutive days. And on the 7th day, Enki and Alalu watched the collected metals. There was iron, there was copper, but gold was not plentiful. They worked on separating the metals, and on the next 7th day, they rested. And on the following 6 days they filled and emptied the crystal vessels, so that on the 7th day they would count the metals. Gold was the smallest of piles. During the entire period of work, Enki was in awe of Kingu, the moon. What was this strange connection that the moon and the earth had with each other? What celestial sign was there? And then Enki called the full circle of the moon a month, and they worked on the metals for a few months. Then Enki could see the sun, and to every 6 months he provided the name of a hot season, on the next 6 months a cold one. There was winter and summer, and Enki called the whole year of the earth. At the end of each year, he counted the accumulated gold. And with the levels of gold in an alarming situation, the Anunnaki decided to sink their ship through the waters in search of the gold in the depths. Soon they could observe that Nibiru's was approaching. Anu asked the amount of gold, but it was insufficient. And so it was decided to wait for one more Shah. And with more time on Earth, the parts of the ship were separated, and Enki built a chamber. With the chamber, Enki and Abgul flew low over the Earth, watching and studying the planet.
Right over there? What are you doing?
Enki was intrigued. He and Alilu talked. Where are Tiamat's golden veins? And on Nibiru apprehension grew. Gold was desired, and not only desired, it was essential. The protests increased, and Anu said, "Hand over what gold you have. Repair Alilu's ship, and may he bring gold to Nibiru." Enki took the weapons of terror from the ship of Alilu and hid them in a distant and secret place. Anzu worked to prepare the ship of Alilu so that it would be ready to travel to Nibiru to deliver the gold, as soon as the Shah ended.
Heads-up display task thing.
And it was not long before Anzu observed the absence of the weapons of terror. These weapons should not be used either on skies or land. But without them it is dangerous to cross the hammered bracelet. Alilu's ship has no jets of water, I have to remind you. The words of the Anunnaki on Earth were heard by the Council of Nibiru. The risk was of not being able to return.
I might remove that. Good lord.
And then Abgul took the word to say that he would like to take this risk. I will deliver the gold to Nibiru, he said. The astronomers studied the best moment, and then Abgul took the ship on the way of Nibiru, carrying with him the gold of salvation. On Nibiru, people waited for the gold of salvation. Abgul withstood the flaming heat of entering the planet's atmosphere and skillfully steered the craft to the designated landing spot. The crowd applauded and revered the act of heroism. And as soon as the doors of the ship were opened, Anu, the king of Nibiru, gave welcome to Abgul.
What's up?
Meanwhile, other Anunnaki took the gold from the ship and destined it to the appropriate place. Soon, the gold would be reduced to the finest powder to be pulverized into the atmosphere. In the assembly of the Anunnaki, Anu pronounced, "Salvation is here. The gold of salvation has arrived." Though the words of Anu were of glory and exaltation, apprehension was great among the people. Were the theories correct? Would the pulverized gold be able to promote the closing of the holes in the atmosphere? And the answer was
yes.
Affirmative. The rift that had received the gold was closing, and the royal palace was filled with joy.
Yay.
However, with the proximity of the sun, the rays deflected the gold and the crack opened again. Anu commanded, "Abgul, return to Earth immediately. We need abundant gold. Nungal and other Anunnaki will accompany you. Leave as soon as possible." So Abgul and other Anunnaki departed from Nibiru with Earth on their destiny. When they arrived at the planet, they were received on Eridu by Enki. After the initial greetings, the work of extracting gold quickly began. What was seen, however, was worrying. The amount of gold was insufficient. Enki and Alaloo day after day looked each other and talked.
Drink with me right now? Like...
Both of them were intrigued. Their hearts tightened. Where would the gold be abundant? Where were Tiamat's golden veins? Enki made his exploration with often flights.
Well,
he knew the mountains and valleys, but it was necessary to explore further until the solution was found. Then it went towards the land separated by the oceans, and finally the bowels of the earth revealed themselves.
Okay. Lots of images.
It was there, where the dry land split in two, where the land took the shape of a heart at the bottom. The golden veins of the earth's bowels would be abundant. Enki called the area as Abzu and said, "On Abzu there is much gold." Enki communicated the news to the Council of Nibiru, and a new assembly was formed. As soon as Enki communicated the news to the planet Nibiru, hope has returned everywhere.
2 drinks I gotta take.
The only certainty was the need for gold exploration. But the question that remained, however, was how to obtain this gold.
Carefully.
And in the assembly of the gods, Enki's half-brother Enlil spoke. First was Alaloo and then Enki. Everyone waits for salvation, from Shah to Shah. But now, we hear different words. A task beyond the imaginable must be undertaken. To do that, you need proof of the golden veins. And you need a plan for us to succeed. And in the assembly, a great division was made. That's when Anu took the floor and uttered a decision. Let Enlil go to Earth. Maybe evidence be collected. And may a plan be forged. The assembly was unanimous. Everyone consented. The words were conveyed to Earth, and Anu commanded, henceforth Enlil shall be in command. His word will be order. And then Enlil began his preparations to start his mission to Earth, accompanied by the Lieutenant Chief Alalga. As soon as Enlil arrived on Earth, he had been received by his brother Enki, who embraced him warmly, welcoming his brother. Alaloo, however, was not so warm in his welcome, beckoning with simple words. The rest of the Anunnaki were anxiously awaiting for Enlil, and finally they could begin their work. The new Earth's mission commander ordered the small ships assembled for an exploration. Enki and Abdul took a ship to show the way across the Abzu, while Enlil and Alalga followed in another spacecraft. They tested the soil of Abzu and discovered gold, but with a lot of sand and rocks.
The ships at the edge of this crater are huge.
And so, they returned to Eridu. In Eridu, Enlil took the floor and said that a new mission would begin. Enlil described a great plan and proposed a great mission. Enlil explained that Eridu had to be enlarged and new Anunnaki would be brought from Nibiru. It was necessary to found new settlements. With this the gold would be collected and then separated from the mixture. Then it would be transported in celestial ships. The plan was detailed and seemed effective, but Enki and Alaloo looked at each other. Enki questioned, "And who will command the settlements? Who will be in Abzu?" Then Alaloo added, "Who will command the new Eridu and who will supervise the settlements?" Anzu took the floor to question, "Who will command the ships and the landing place?" Enlil was quick and concise in his reply. Let Anu come to Earth and let him make the decisions himself. And so it was done. Nungal was chosen as its pilot, and together Anu and Nungal departed from Nibiru destined to Earth. Enki provided boats to receive the Anunnaki from the spaceships that landed on the water. And as soon as he saw Anu, his father, he bowed towards him, who embraced him, saying, "My dear son, my eldest son." Then Anu traveled to Eridu, where he was received by Enlil, Alalu, and the other Anunnaki who received the royalty of Nibiru now on Earth. Enlil received his father warmly and respectfully. Alalu received Anu hesitantly, but as one receives a friend. A dinner was served in honor to the king of Nibiru, who retired to the cabin prepared by Enki soon after.
Gosh damn it.
On the next day, Anu went to the Abzu to explore the area and check the gold. However, Anu was perplexed.
This was seriously...
Extract the gold will not be easy, he said. But it must happen. Enki and Enlil will be in charge of building tools and making the extraction of gold possible. Thus days and nights has passed, until in Eridu a meeting has taken place. Enki spoke, "It was I who founded Eridu. However, other camps in the region need to be created. May the land be known to Edin, and may I have it under my command. Let Enlil take charge of extracting the gold." But Enlil was enraged. He said, "The plan is unfair. In commands and plans I am the best, and from Earth and its secrets Enki stands out. He discovered the Abzu. May Enki be the lord of the Abzu? May I be the lord of Edin?" The brothers Enki and Enlil argued fervently. Anu listened carefully and reflected. Enki was the firstborn, but Enlil was his legitimate son with Antu, the queen. Anu observed that discussions tended to have this beginning, but not an end. Besides, one must return to Nibiru, as the Edin and the Abzu needed command. After pondering, Anu announced, "Luck will decide what will happen. And between the three of us a decision will be made. Let the fate speaks for itself." Then the fate has been decided by luck. Anu would return to Nibiru to be the ruler. Enlil would be the lord of command in the Edin. Enki would become the lord of the Abzu. Thus Anu spoke, "Let Enlil enlarge the camps of the Edin and be responsible for loading the gold into the ships, and for commanding the Anunnaki until the lands meet the barriers of the waters. And may Ye, my firstborn, at this time be known by Enki, the Lord of Earth. May he be known as the first to land, and let him rule the Abzu."
17, maybe if we took out
Enlil in
Anunnaki.
its turn said, "Enki, Lord of Earth, this shall be your title.
Oh, Christ.
And I, Enlil, will be known as Lord of
I'm
Command."
so drunk right now.
The decision was announced to the other Anunnaki in assembly. And then Anu confidently said, "I will return to Nibiru with an easy heart. Success is on the way."
Amen to that.
But Alalu stood
I hope y'all
before.
enjoyed me failing epically.
"An important matter has been forgotten," he shouted. "The dominion of Earth had been promised to me.
Still another, like, 30...
This is what was said when I announced my arrival and the discovery of gold. Furthermore, I have not renounced my claims to the throne of Nibiru.
Sorry,
It is
I'm
an
sleeping
abomination
using
that you should share everything with your children. You owe me a fight for the throne of Nibiru."
Like, how does the ruling of a
Anu,
planet come down
enraged,
to
said, "Let us
hand-to-hand
fight,
combat
then, for the
between
throne of Nibiru. Let's not wait
What
any
kind of
longer.
crazy shit
This
is
fight
that?
must take place. Now." What was seen was an unprecedented
Realistically,
battle. The two members of
they want
nobility
to
of
come out
Nibiru
with
had arrived
a
on a
new
new
world.
world,
Like,
but they
that's
carried with them the
conspiracy
ferocity of a
theory, like,
wild
that's what
animal.
Seems to be
Alalu had lost the fight once more, fell to the
case,
floor.
like, for what they're trying to implement.
Anu had laid his feet on him.
But
I win,
Hey,
Alalu. You are
there's a new world
defeated.
order. Is it going to be
But
one
with sarcasm,
ruler? Is it going to
Alalu
be
smiled,
council of
and as swiftly as a wild animal, he imposed his strength on Anu, pulling him by the legs.
work together?
Then
to,
he bit into Anu's private parts
run the world type
and
thing?
swallowed. Anu fell to the ground stunned.
Will it devolve to this? Like, we have elections now. We have
Enki rushed to Anu's rescue.
That's clearly flawed.
Enlil arrested the offender. Let justice be done, said Enlil in a rage. No, no,
Just so
interrupted Enki,
much
justice
interesting
has
stuff
already
about
been
this
done.
story. And
The poison is inside
first
him.
damn soap opera on the
He
planet
swallowed
was a
it
story
himself. Alalu was imprisoned
the
long
Anunnaki.
enough for the law to be
It's
fulfilled.
like, if this is actually
Anu recovered and
legit,
called the meeting of the seven who
Like,
judge. Anu took the highest
half of this
place,
stuff is
presiding
legit.
over the occasion.
I mean, granted, even if a
On his
fraction of
right
it
sat
is
Enki,
legitimate, that
Anzu, and Nungal.
the
On his
Anunnaki
left
real,
sat
the
Enlil,
real.
Abgal, and
Pretty
Alalga.
sure, like, as long as
Enlil
that
took
is
the word.
actually real,
By justice and at
Enough of this
Alalu's bidding, a
is
new
also
fight was
real.
made. And
I mean, you don't
Alalu
know.
have
it's
lost.
crazy.
What do you have
We
to
still
say?
don't
They
know
questioned Enki. The
So
fight
much
took
about
place
our
for
own
justice,
planet, let alone
and I have
what's
lost the
out there
royalty.
beyond
Enlil
space.
interrupted Alalu, saying, and having lost, he committed
idea
an
that there's
abominable
some random
crime.
rogue planet that
Death is the
does,
punishment. What do you have to say? Asked
around
Enki
our solar
once
system
more.
every 3,600 years or so.
Alalu was silent. And then,
That could
slowly
also
and
have
quietly, he spoke.
Fuck. It could
On
happen.
Nibiru I was rightful king and Anu was my cupbearer. I reigned for 9 Shahs until Anu himself sat on my throne. We vie for royalty in one combat, and fearing for my life I departed from Nibiru and found a new world.
Where in the world did this
Here I
go?
have found the
This
gold of
$1
salvation,
for another movie, or-
and return to Nibiru in kingship has been promised. Next came Enki to earth, and by appointment he was appointed next to reign on Nibiru.
hand down.
Next came Enlil claiming Anu's succession for himself. And then came Anu himself. Luck decided and deceived Enki, who has been proclaimed the Lord of Earth,
Sorry, I'm just checking to
not
see if
Nibiru's.
she made it back into her terrarium.
And then Enlil declared the command of Earth and cast Enki into the distant Abzu. My heart aches, burns in agony. And then he himself imposed his feet on my chest in victory. Anu spoke, I beat him in a fair fight. And you swallowed my manhood to interrupt my bloodline.
Oh, that's... Okay, so yeah.
Enlil spoke,
Bit off
the
his
accused
fucking
admitted the crime.
dick.
May death be your sentence. To death is said Alalga. Death, said Abgal. Death, said Nungal. Enki spoke, death will come of itself. Alalu swallowed Anu's entrails. Anzu, for his part, said, let Alalu be bound in earth till the end of his days. The king of Nibiru reflected,
Like that.
and then he said, die in exile. Alalu must die in exile. Everyone looked at each other.
Like, how does that seem like
Anu
a real bad
explained.
sentence?
When I return to Nibiru, Alalu shall come with me in my ship, but he will not go to Nibiru. We will circle around Lamu. There is water and
he drops
breathable
him on
atmosphere there.
Mars. That's
Alalu shall
right.
count to the end of his days in Lamu's solitude. And for a safety landing a small celestial ship can be used. The decision was unanimous. Anu proceeded, Nungal shall pilot the great ship. I will remain on Nibiru, and Nungal will return with other Anunnaki from Nibiru to Earth to work in gold mining.
Dropped.
Anzu will be with us to descend the small ship with Alalu on board.
Basically, it was like
And so it was done. Anu took leave of
that
his
planet
sons
doesn't
and the
have
rest of the
enough to
Anunnaki.
survive,
And then
or
the royalty of Nibiru took flight from planet Earth,
not enough to survive.
approaching
You can't
Lamu that
survive,
Alalu should be sent into exile.
but
And in the
nobody
vicinity
actually
of
wants
the
to
red
go there.
planet, Anzu said, I will not return with the small celestial ship. I will land with Alalu on Lamu and I will stay with him. When he dies from the poison in his entrails, I will bury him as a king deserves. And as for me, I've already made my name. Others will say about my name that I was the companion of a king in exile. I have seen and will see things that others will not have seen, on a strange planet, facing things unknown. My name will be remembered as a hero. Allelu was in tears. Anu was amazed. And then he uttered, I lift my hand upon you, O Anzu, and I swear this oath to thee. On the next journey a ship will circle Lamu and land before your presence. If I find you alive, you will be proclaimed the Lord of Lamu. And when a station is established in Lamu, you will be the commander. Anzu nodded in thanks and agreement, and the preparations for the installation in the small ship began. They were provided with supplies and fish suits with eagle helmets. Then the ship left towards Lamu, disappearing on the horizon. For 9 Shahs Allelu was the king of Nibiru. For 8 Shahs he commanded Eridu, on earth. And on the 9th Shah he overcame fortune and met death in Lamu's exile.
Jesus. That's so ridiculous. Like, how do you fuck that up?
On Earth, a long discussion took place until the next steps were defined. Enki asked Alalga to oversee Eridu, and he went to the Abzu where he designed technological equipment to pierce the bowels of the Earth and penetrate the bowels of Ki.
Well, it would have been dope if somebody would have, like...
He sent the plans to Nibiru for the engineers to build. Enlil, in Edin, surveyed the activities and numbered the mountains, valleys, rivers, and plains. Enlil took delight in the snow-capped mountains of the north of the Edin, and then he began to prepare a platform for the celestial ships. He wished it for himself. Meanwhile, the royal ship traversed space towards Nibiru. Anu was received with feasting. And he gave instructions to everyone. Intermediate stations needs to be created. The first in Lamu and the second in Kingu should be considered. He organized new studies of all the planets and predicted a caravan of celestial ships from Nibiru to Earth, and from Earth to Nibiru, tracing different routes. He created a new class of spaceships and selected new Anunnaki who were to learn and train for the mission. He transmitted the plans to Enki and Enlil on Earth and received the blueprints to build the equipment for the team of engineers from Enki. Then a new mission left Nibiru for Earth. There was 50, and this time it carried chosen women. Ninmah, the exalted lady, half-sister of Enki and Enlil, also daughter of Anu, was in Journey's crew. Ninmah was skilled in the arts of medicine and knew how to care for illness. Ninmah had heard of the vertigo caused by the sun and the Earth's rotational cycle, and for that reason she prepared a cure. The mission from Nibiru encircled Lamu as promised by Anu.
I'm sure that's it.
Upon approaching, the ship found Anzu near a river, lifeless. That's when Ninmah pushed everyone else aside and began to act. He took the pulsator out of his bag and pointed it at Anzu's heart. Then he took the emitter out of the bag and directed the life-giving emissions of its crystals to Anzu's body. 60 times Ninmah directed the pulsator and emitter towards Anzu. And for the 60th time Anzu opened his eyes and moved his lips. Ninmah poured the water of life over him and moistened his lips with it. Then he placed the food of life in his mouth. And so, the miracle occurred. Anzu rose from the dead. And recovering consciousness, he told of Allelu's last moments and how he prepared his funeral, and covered the mountain that rose from the plain with stones. Then the Anunnaki carved the face of Alelu upon the rocky mountain and left the face uncovered. Ninmah said, "Let Alelu's face eternally behold the land where he found gold. And as for you, Anzu King Anu, my father, commanded the promise made to you to be fulfilled. 20 men will accompany you here on Lamu, and a way station must be built. Spaceships will leave Earth and arrive here loaded with gold. The gold stored here will be collected by celestial ships that will carry the gold to Nibiru. Anzu, you are the commander of Lamu. My life belongs to you, O Ninmah, the great lady. My gratitude to Anu knows no bounds." And then the celestial ship that carried Ninmah and other Anunnaki departed from Lamu towards Earth. Anzu and other Anunnaki remained on Lamu with the intention of creating an intermediary way station. Meanwhile, the gigantic ship was heading towards Earth, observing the moon and analyzing the possibility of another way station. Nungal led the ship to the ditch in the waters closest to Eridu, where they disembarked on a pier built by Enlil. Vessels were no longer needed. Enki and Enlil welcomed their sister Ninmah. She told them all the news, what happened on Nibiru and the death of Alelu, the survival of Anzu on Lamu, and the construction of the way station. Enki expressed his approval, and Enlil was perplexed.
What?
Ninmah said, "Anu's decisions are unalterable. It's his word." And another news. "I brought relief from illness, I brought the seeds of healing." From her pouch, Ninmah drew the seeds. They would be planted, and after their growth a juice could be made. The Anunnaki must drink this juice, and then all diseases will go away, said Ninmah. But these seeds must be sown in a warm and cool place. They need heat and water to feed. "Come to the ship," Enlil said to Ninmah. "I know the perfect spot for it."
No.
Thus, the two brothers entered the ship towards the snow-covered mountains next to the cedar forest. Enlil and Ninmah talked and exchanged love and affection. Ninmah told Enlil about Ninurta, explaining that the prince was ready to join them on Earth. Enlil, father of Ninurta, was the son of Antu, the lawful wife of Anu. He was the legal heir, the successor of Anu. Ninmah was the half-sister of Enlil, mother of Ninurta, and the first daughter of Anu. Extremely beautiful and full of wisdom, Ninmah was skillful and quick to learn. The two, Enlil and Ninmah, caressed each other, but Enlil did not pour his life-giving fluid into Ninmah's womb. And then they headed back to Eridu. On the way, Enlil showed the landscape and presented the Eden in all its extension.
Based off of the...
And from this Enlil explained his whole plan. "Far from Eridu, where the dry land begins, will be my abode. Lhasa will be its name. It will be the place of command. It will be located on the banks of the Buranu, the river of deep waters. A city will arise in the future, and its name will be Lagash. Between the two, in the plans, I drew a line, and near will be a city which be called Shurabak, the city of refuge. This will be your city. It will stand on the central line and lead to the fourth city, Nibruki. Nibruki will be the crossing point, the heaven-earth link. It will be home from the tablets of destinies and will control all quests. With Eridu, there will be 5 cities that will exist forever." And then Enlil demonstrated a crystal tablet with several markings and explained that in the future, there will be a place for the ship to arrive from Nibiru to Earth. Ninmah was surprised at the complexity of it all. In this way, she understood Enlil's disagreement with Anu's plan and the creation of an intermediary station on Lamu. "It is a magnificent plan," said Ninmah. She was visibly emotional. Enlil's plan contemplated the creation of a city for her. It would be the healing city, a healing station. But, warned Ninmah, do not transgress your father beyond this plan. Don't offend your brother Enki either. You are as wise as beautiful, Enlil said.
Honestly annoyed that this.
Meanwhile, in the Abzu, Enki also conceived plans. The plans of Enki and Enlil were very different. He thought where he could build dwellings for the Anunnaki, where to build his own home, and where to enter the bowels of the earth. From his celestial ship he measured the entire length of the Abzu and carefully surveyed all regions. The Abzu was a land far away and beyond the waters of the Eden. A rich and perfect land. There were rivers that crossed the region with enormous flow of water. Enki built his abode beside running pure waters in the midst of the Abzu. In this land Enki determined the place of the deep, so that the Anunnaki could access the bowels of the earth. Thus, through interior tunnels, they could discover the golden veins. He installed the equipment to crush the extracted gold, what parts and what crushes. Then they would be transported in celestial ships and taken to the landing place in the Cedar Mountains. And from their spaceships would transport the gold to the way station on Lamu. And so, several extraterrestrials arrived on the planet. Some went to the Eden under Enlil's responsibility. Others to the Abzu with Enki. And others were directed to Shurabak with Ninmah. On Nibruki, the heaven-earth link, Enlil grouped and commanded all missions there. Enki traveled between Eridu and the Abzu constantly, overseeing all activities. At Lamu construction was progressing and the way station received a number of workers. So 2 shahs passed until on the 7th day Anu gave his order in an official pronouncement. On Earth that was the 7th day, a day of rest decreed by Enki in the beginning. 600 gathered to follow Anu's pronouncement. Enki with his vizier Isimud and Nungal the pilot, Alagar, the lord of Eridu and Abgul who commanded the landing place. In the Eden Enlil watched the transmission with Ninmah and the maidens of her host who also accompanied her. On Lamu together with Anzu diverse workmen gathered. And then Anu spoke. You are heroes, the true saviors of Nibiru. The fate of the entire planet is in your hands. Your deeds will be remembered for all eternity, and your names will be glorified. From now on, those on earth will be called the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. And for those who are on Lamu shall be called Ijiji, those who observe and see they shall be. Everything needed is now ready. Let the gold begin to arrive, and let Nibiru be saved. But Anu, in the distance on Nibiru, could not foresee the approaching of confusion, starting with the dilemma of their own sons. It all started long before the arrival of the Anunnaki on Earth. Enki was the eldest son of Anu. But he was not, however, the legitimate heir, as he was the son of a concubine. Ninmah, the eldest daughter, had been chosen by Anu to marry Enki, his eldest son. Thus, the firstborn of the two would have double seed and be the legal successor. However, Ninmah was in love with the other half-brother, Enlil. And so Enlil left his seed in Ninmah's womb, and Ninurta, the prince who might soon be on earth, son of Enlil and Ninmah, was born. Enraged, at that time, and still on Nibiru, Anu had forbidden Ninmah to marriage no matter who.
Ultimate soap opera. This is why soap operas became...
Then Enki married a princess, the daughter of Alalu, the beautiful Damkina.
Craziest soap opera that
Enki and Damkina also had a son, who was called Marduk, and it meant one born in a pure place. Thus Enki, Anu's eldest son, had a son by marriage, Marduk. And Enlil, Anu's rightful heir, had a son, Ninurta, but not by marriage. Enlil's story, in this respect, had been developed on Earth, not Nibiru's.
Fuck up that damn spacing.
Enlil had fallen in love with Sud, one of Ninma's maidens, while she was bathing in a cold mountain. Enlil took Sud to his abode in the cedar grove and offered her the elixir of the fruit of Nibiru that grew on Earth. The two drank and Enlil made his intentions clear. However, Sud told him about his virginity and that his lips had never kissed anyone. But he laughed and kissed her, depositing the seed of life in her womb. Ninma deeming the action immoral and denounced Enlil for judgment before the seven who judge. Enlil's sentence was exile to a land of no return, far from all cities. Abgal was Enlil's pilot who took him to a distant land amid inhospitable mountains. And descending the ship to the ground, Abgal said, "Enlil, I did not choose this place by chance. In a cave near here Enki hid the weapons of terror that were in Alalu's ship. Take possession of the weapons, and you will get freedom again." That said, Abgal departed and Enlil was left alone in that place. In the Edin, Sud spoke with her commander Ninma. She told her that she was pregnant and in her womb Enlil's son had been conceived. Ninma conveyed the news to Enki, the Lord of Earth, whom at that moment was supreme on Earth. Enki decided to summon the seven who judge, and at the judgment Sud was questioned to the possibility of accepting Enlil as her husband. And having accepted, Enlil returned from exile to marry Sud, who was now called Ninlil, the Lady of the Mandate. After this a son was born to Enlil and Ninlil. His name was Nanna, the Bright One. And it was said that Nanna was the first child of two Anunnaki conceived on Earth. It was a royal seed from Nibiru conceived on Earth. As soon as Nanna, son of Enlil and Ninlil, was born, Enki decided to talk with Ninma. He had built his house in the Abzu and had adorned his dwelling with a bright metal taken from the depths which he called silver. He also used lapis lazuli. Then he invited his half-sister to go with him to the Abzu and abandon her worship for Enlil. In the Abzu, Enki reminded Ninma about their engagement and their love. They kissed each other and Enki asked Ninma to give him a son. And from their union a daughter was born. Enki was disappointed. Ninma encouraged him to know his daughter, but Enki said, "I will have a son with you, my sister." And so, another relationship they had and another daughter was born. Enki shouted, "A son, I need a child. I need a boy." Enraged Ninma pronounced a curse on Enki. "May all food be poison in your viscera. That his jaw hurts and that his teeth and his ribs hurt." Enki's vizier, Isimud, summoned the Anunnaki to beseech Ninma for relief from the curse. And Enki swore to distance himself from Ninma's private parts, who immediately one by one removed all disease from Enki's body. Ninma thus returned to Edin to never marriage no one, as was the bidding of Anu her father. Enki, in turn, brought his son Marduk and his wife, Damkina, to Earth. Enki had 5 more children by his wife Damkina and also by concubines. Thus were born Nergal, Jibal, Ninagal, Ninjishzada, and Dumuzi, his youngest son. On the other side of Anu's generation, Enlil and Ninma brought their son Ninurta to Earth. Besides this, Enlil had another son by his wife Ninlil. Ishkur was his name. The Anunnaki on Earth, or the sons of Anu, we count Enki, the firstborn of Anu, with a concubine, Ninma, the first daughter of Anu, and Enlil, the son of Anu, with the queen Antu. Enlil had 3 sons, Nanna, the first son of 2 Anunnaki born on Earth, Ishkur, and Ninurta, son of Enlil and Ninma, born on Nibiru and brought to Earth.
It's kind of
Enki
interesting.
was the father of Marduk, which was son of Enki and Damkina. his wife, besides the two daughters he had with Ninmah and the Anunnaki Nergal, Jibal, Ninagal, Ninjishzada, and Dumuzi. On this way, two clans settled on Earth. Later, the clans of Enki and Enlil would go to war. But these issues will be observed in the future. For now, still on the fifth tablet, we will look at why the Anunnaki conceived the idea of creating human beings to replace the work of the gods.
Now the open loop.
In the Abzu, gold was extracted from the golden veins of the earth. The golden metal was conducted to the landing place. From there, the Igigi transported the gold in sapsips to the intermediary way station on Lamu. And from Lamu the precious metal was delivered to Nibiru in celestial ships. On Nibiru the gold was ground to the finest powder, and thrown onto the atmosphere for the protection of the planet. Slowly and step by step Earth's gold healed Nibiru's wounds, holes and cracks. Enki built a dazzling abode in Eridu. And from the earth he raised it to heaven like a mountain. Took to live with him Damkina and Marduk. Enki proceeded to teach Marduk various things. On Nibru, Ki and Enlil established the link between heaven and earth with a construction equally dazzling.
Again, that should have been Nibiru Ki.
Their words were heard on Lamu and on Nibiru.
Which is essentially
the rays that came from there could seek the heart of all lands.
Earth, like
his eyes explored all the lands, and it was impossible an approach that could not be seen. From the top of the chamber Enlil studied everything and watched everyone and everything. He studied the secrets of the sun and the moon and recorded them in secret formulas. He improved the celestial zenith and fixed the 12 houses, and with the 12 emblems he marked the family of the sun. The tablets of destinies gleamed in their royal abode while the class of workers work very hard. The earth's cycles left them astonished, and the portions of the healing elixir were given to them in small quantities. In Edin the Anunnaki were weary. In the Abzu the work was strenuous, the Igigi on Lamu complained constantly. And by Anu's command, Anzu, the commander of Lamu, was received on earth. Enki and Enlil might reveal to him the Abzu and the secrets of the heaven-earth link on Nibru, Ki. Anzu defended the Igigi of Lamu, who asked for a rest on earth whenever spaceships went back and forth between earth and Lamu. Received in Enlil's chamber, Anzu intended to steal the tablets of destinies.
Intended to steal?
He was a prince among princes and had promised relief to the Igigi. Enlil left the shrine and Anzu remained at the entrance without suspicion. Then he seized the tablets of destinies and departed from the celestial chamber towards the landing place, where the Igigi had gathered awaiting his return to declare Anzu the king of the earth and Lamu. And from the top of the chamber, Enlil, perceiving the theft, and afflicted with treachery, spoke angry words to Enki, questioning about who was Anzu. On Nibru, Ki the Anunnaki seek the words of Anu. The order was to stop Anzu and retrieve the tablets of destinies. But Anzu, in possession of the tablets, was invincible. Despite this, Ninurta stood ready to fight and recover what was rightfully his father's. Javelins were hurled at Anzu, but they missed. Arrows were launched, but they also missed him. So a mighty weapon was prepared. A Tilu missile. The instruction was to approach, and when they were united, Ninurta and Anzu, wing to wing, the missile would be launched, creating a whirlwind and a storm of dust. And then like a ball of fire Anzu fell. The earth shook, the heavens shook. Ninurta took the tablets of destinies and made Anzu his prisoner. Quickly Ninurta was applauded at the landing place, and the Anunnaki who had been taken prisoner had been freed. And before the judges Anzu was sentenced to death. Then fluid of life of Anzu had extinguished.
She's popping with a
Ninurta
good
said,
bubble wrap.
"Leave your body to the vultures." And Enki answered, "Lead
Yay,
Anzu's
I
body
know
to
it. I
Lamu,
know I
that it may
stopped
be
it.
buried beside Alalu." The same ancestral seed they both possess. Let Marduk, my son, conduct Anzu's corpse and let him abide there, that he may become Lamu's commander. Meanwhile, on Earth,
crazy
Enki and
beard.
Enlil discuss changes to avoid confusion. Ninurta, who was an expert in the interiorities of planets, suggested a new city of metal for new shipments to be made. Thus those who were weary could return to Nibiru and new Anunnaki could come to Earth in their place.
Let's cycle
In
them
this
out.
way, in the Edin, new construction began, and it took 3 Shahs until the city of Bad Tibira be created.
Wow.
Ninurta, who had given the suggestion, was the
that's
first commander.
10,000.
In this way, the flow of gold to
Years?
Nibiru was easier and
Years?
faster. Those who were on Earth and Lamu, many of them returned to Nibiru. Alauga, Abgal and Nungal were among them. Received as heroes, the inhabitants of the planet Nibiru, especially the younger ones, wanted to participate in the missions and mainly wanted the emotions. They did not know what great calamities there were on Earth, on Lamu and in the heavens. In Bad Tibira, gold was smelted and refined, and then sent to Lamu in spaceships. Pure gold was carried from Lamu to Tibiru in celestial ships. And as Ninurta had conceived, gold flowed from Abzu to Nibiru. However, what was not noticed was the malaise of the newly arrived Anunnaki. Enki turned his attention to other matters in the Abzu, and could not see what was happening. So Enki created a new complex called the House of Life and invited his son Ninjishsuda to work with him. Enki was especially curious of some living creatures that lived among the tall trees and used their front paws as hands. It was in the tall grasses of the steppes that strange creatures could be seen that seemed to walk upright. The secrets of life and death were carefully studied by Enki. The House of Life was in the Abzu, and it had all manner of carefully crafted tools and equipment. Enki was absolutely enchanted and absorbed, fully occupied with his studies. And Ninurta, in Bad Tibira, was the first to notice a decrease in gold mining. Enlil sent Ninurta to the Abzu to find out what was happening. Enujai, the chief officer, accompanied him on the excavations. He had heard the complaints of the Anunnaki with his own ears and had told Ninurta of all he'd heard. "The work here is unbearable." Ninurta told the matter to Enki, who quickly called for Enlil. The Lord of Command, Enlil, arrived at the Abzu and settled in an abode near the excavations.
Come on, gotta figure this out, bro.
That's when a group of Anunnaki workers attacked Enujai, the chief officer of mines. They set fire on their tools, and then approached Enlil's abode in protest.
Enlil's abode.
Kal, the gatekeeper, barred the door and summoned
Do it
Nusku,
so many
Enlil's
times,
vizier. Nusku called out to the Lord of Command from his rest and said, "My lord, we are surrounded. The Anunnaki workers are here, they protest against the heavy work." Enki and Ninurta were summoned. "What is happening?" asked Enlil. Who instigated this hostility? Enlil asked. The rebellion. In unison was answered. "We. All of us." Enlil relayed the events to Anu, who quickly replied, "We need the gold. The work can't stop." Enki pondered, "The work is too heavy, we all know it. The rebellion is not against Enlil, it is against the work." Enujai, the chief mines officer, was freed and consulted. He said, "Since the heat on Earth increased, work is unbearable, intolerable." Ninurta said, "Let the rebels return to Nibiru. And may other Anunnaki come in their place."
What?
Enlil asked
Just
Enki,
the same
"Is it
route.
possible to create new tools for the Anunnaki to avoid the tunnels?" Enki said, "Call my son Ninjishsada, I must speak with him." And after they had talked, Enki announced, "There is a possible solution. Let's create a primitive worker. Lulu will be its name. And may this new being carry the hard work of the Anunnaki on its shoulders." Anunnaki leaders were speechless. Who had thought of a similar solution? Would anyone have thought? And so they called to Ninmah, who was skilled in healing and aid. Ninmah answered, "I never heard of anything like it. All beings descend from a seed, each being developed throughout eternity from another.
It's never something that
None came from nothing." Enki smiled and said, "How right you are, my sister." Then Enki said, "I must reveal a secret of the Abzu. The being we need already exists. All we need to do is brand it with our essence, with the essence of Nibiru, with the Anunnaki essence. Let me create Lulu, the primitive work."
And then it cuts. Must have missed that. But yeah, essentially, like, that leads into Enki saying, alright, there's already an existence of a primitive being here. All we need to do is upgrade that being, and now we don't have to mine the gold with our own people. It'll just be half versions of our people because, again, we're going to splice our own DNA into them, but they're only half of us, so apparently that means only deserve half of any type of recognition. I don't know. I'm honestly pretty toasty right now. If anybody watches this, I hope you enjoy it and have fun with the drinking game. I'm going to go ahead and cut this and, go find Vasuki, my snake, and see what the hell's going on back there. Because it feels like she's climbing on some stuff. Alright, y'all.